So I've spent the last several years working inside D2C brands across Europe, the US, Canada, Asia, basically everywhere except Antarctica. From early stage startups to super large portfolio companies doing hundreds of millions in D2C revenue. And after enough of those, you basically start to notice something. The brands that go from 0 to over 100 million bootstrapped, without VCs, without a war chest, they basically almost always do the same things. And they do them in the same order also. So the problem is these are not the things most people talk about. So I'm gonna tell you what all of my observations are. And if you're trying to bootstrap, I highly recommend that you take them seriously. Number one, pick the right product first. Nothing affects the success of your brand more than product market fit. So start there. If you have an idea, you really just want to validate the idea. Are people interested in buying it? Does the idea even have the potential of working? This is literally the biggest mistake that I see in companies. They overinvest because they're too emotional and they are too attached to the idea, without actually making sure, can the idea even work? Do people want to buy that type of thing? And once you have this, you basically, as much as possible, want to try to create the business in a way that will be easy to scale. And there's very specific filters, really, that you can apply to make sure that the business is easy to scale. First of all, can it be subscription based, the product that you're thinking about? If yes, that's a huge green flag. Secondly, can you scale with one SKU? The two fastest growing companies that I've seen in all my life, both crossing 100 million in basically less than 2 years, both of them being bootstrapped, did so on one core product. I don't know if you can fathom this. One product, not different variations, not just one product, sold well. So does your business have the potential to scale without a lot of complexity? It's extremely important. Number three, is it easy to ship? Is it basically, I don't know, if it's too bulky, for example, that's going to be a problem. Is it cheap and easy to ship? This combined with having few SKUs, hopefully one SKU, is going to make so much easier to scale. And then the last filter is, does it make sense in bulk? A lot of you are very good at buying traffic and you know that your first order AOV is extremely important, right? Like you want to basically be able to scale, which basically means your cost to acquire a customer automatically will go up. So you want to offset this with having high AOV. So you want to have a product that makes sense in bulk so that you can have bundles, so that you can, in a way, offset the cost to acquire a customer going up. If the product doesn't make sense in bulk, that's another big problem. Now, the second thing I've observed is that literally all of those companies always test if things work, like economically, financially, and then they invest in brand. And they also don't rebrand every few months, by the way, which a lot of you are doing. It's mostly creative founders that want to do this. The colors are getting stale. As we grow, we want to better reflect the brand, and I don't like the packaging anymore. All of this is, I'm not saying it's not helpful. It can be helpful in certain ways, but it is not your main priority. It shouldn't take energy. It shouldn't take budget really when you're just starting out. So you want to start with the offer. You want to see, is the offer economically viable? You want to scale. And as you scale, you want to discover the community. Notice the word I'm using, discover the community. You don't necessarily know who will gravitate around your product and what the common patterns among those people will be. You can, of course, try to engineer it in a way that will attract certain people. And if you've been in the game for long enough, you can potentially pull this off. But when you are starting out, when you've launched 1 or 2 or 3 brands, there's people that have launched 50, by the way, 50 different offers, 50 different stores. And then out of those, 10 of them have made over 10. There's people like this. If you're not like this, and if you're just trying to make things work, you discover the community. You don't necessarily know the community ahead of time. So offer first, economic viability then. After you've discovered the community, then you want to think about the brand. And then the brand is actually going to be relevant to the community as well. So it's going to be less of a hypothesis from a design team, from a visual identity standpoint, and from a pure founder conviction. And it's also going to be substantiated. It's actually going to be substantiated by the people that actually gravitate towards what you've built. Number 3, you want to scale your winners, but you also want to always be testing, right? Again, if you've been in the game, you already know this. Every offer has a limited lifespan. Whether it's that the cost to acquire a customer goes up, whether it's that competitors rip you off, whether it's that the angle that you found saturates, the creatives stop working, whatever it is, everything has a beginning and an end. And in my perspective, what I've seen, again, the best brands basically almost become offer factories, right? And what I mean by an offer factory is this: for you to launch and scale an e-commerce brand, you need to have some core competencies. You need to be really good at buying traffic, really good at creative and landing page, basically like acquisition marketing. You need to be really good at this. You need to be able to have at least a solid setup from a retention standpoint, even though having an excellent setup is what truly unlocks growth. But you want to have a basic setup at the very least, and then you want to be able to engineer credibility, whether it's influencers that you're using or celebrity endorsement, whatever it is. This is what will ultimately give you this rocket fuel to scale. Obviously, you also want to be good at the supply chain. Once you have those core competencies, it's very easy to launch new brands. It's very easy to launch new offers, basically, which is why this offer factory concept is so common. There's companies right now. An example would be Orbio. Again, if you're in the game, you've seen that. Another would be D2C Vikings. things. The same exact concept. They're launching multiple different brands and they're scaling them simply because they've mastered those core competencies, right? And then you of course want to double down on what works. You want to scale the thing that works as opposed to like playing around with things that don't, but you should always be testing. And if you do that, you'll never have issues. Number 4, know your numbers, right? And the number you want to know ultimately is how much money do I make from a customer relative to how much I pay to acquire a customer. This is what people call LTV-to-CAC. Other people call it LTV-to-CPA. You know, people look at it on an order basis or a customer basis. It's basically the same. I'm putting this amount of money, how much money do I get out of it, right? Like that's it in a nutshell. And a good ratio you want to have is you make 3 to 4 times as much as you put in to acquire a customer. If you make less than 2, so if you make 200 and you spend 100 to acquire a customer, probably you're not having a very profitable business because you have other costs, right? Like it's not just the ad spend. If you are having more than 4, you're probably being too conservative. You're probably basically leaving money on the table and you want to be pushing the pedal a little bit faster. Now, before we get into the last 3, if you're watching this and you don't know your LTV to CAC ratio, that's usually the first thing we look at when we work with a brand. It tells you almost everything you need to know about where to focus. And most of the time, the problem isn't just acquisition, it's what happens next. We work with e-commerce and subscription brands on exactly this, finding where the greatest and quickest ways to improve LTV are. There's a link in the description if you want to take a look, if you want us rather to take a look at your setup, and there's no commitment. You can find the link below and you probably should take me on that offer. Okay, 3 more. Number 5, you don't need a million channels. You have 3 main channels. There's a lot of huge companies that have been built on those 3 huge channels. First, you have paid social, which is how you get discovered and how you acquire customers. You have influencer seeding, which is basically creating credibility for you, right? Like it makes your ads, your emails, your landers, everything else work better. And then of course you have lifecycle marketing, which is your email, your SMS, your WhatsApp, your direct mail, and in my opinion also your subscription program. I would include this within lifecycle, and that's your retention engine. Those 3 systems working with each other is basically all you need to scale to 100 million. You don't need to master affiliate marketing or like master retail. All of those things would be helpful, or like AppLovin now, it's like TikTok shop. There's every few months there's something new. All of this would be helpful, and perhaps you should look into those other channels, but my advice, master the core 3 channels before you do anything else. Number 6, stop filling a bucket that's leaking, right? Like in a subscription business, and if you're watching this, hopefully you have a subscription business, most brands basically focus on growing subscriber acquisition, right? Like that's what everybody focuses on. But there's another lever, which is losing fewer subscribers, reducing your churn, and it's massively underinvested. Obviously, you want to increase the amount of money that people spend over time, which is your 3rd lever. Now, all of those 3 levers pulled at once is how you create a very enduring and scalable lifetime value business. And the thing is, people think of those other pillars beyond acquisition as basically set and forget. You create your upsells, so you don't need to worry about how much money people spend. You create your flows and your cancellation flow on your subscription platform, then you don't need to worry about churn. This is wrong. You want to think about this as something ongoing. We call this retention operations. It always goes on and on the back end, and you want to have a dedicated resource, whether it's an agency like YOCTO or an in-house hire that focuses on optimizing those levers. Number 7, all of the brands that succeed, they hire slower, right? And that's because a great hire can raise the bar, whereas like a bad hire can lower the bar for everybody else. And I see it too often in e-commerce. The brand starts making money and then like you get on a hiring spree and like basically hire like 100 people like this. It's one of the worst possible mistakes that you can make. In fact, I'll tell you this and you'll understand. I know a company that does over 100 million. Right now they have 6 people. If of course you exclude the support team, which is larger. But like the core team is only 6 people. 6 people, 100 million. Can you understand this? And then you're looking at brands that have like, I don't know, 10, 20, 30 million, there's like 50 of them or like 100 of them. Makes no sense. Hire slow and hire for brains more than anything. Hire for like just pure ability to like brain power, basically, right? And the way you want to do this, because how can you tell if someone is smart or how can you tell if someone would be a good fit, is you want to stop asking hypotheticals. Like, what would you do if I gave you XYZ responsibility? No, people, when you ask them hypotheticals, they can basically just like make things up. What you want to do is ask about real past behavior, specific situations, specific things that they went through, and then have them walk you through those situations in as much detail as possible. People that have actually done the thing, they know how to walk you through the thing in detail. The people that don't are just going to give you like very generic answers. An example, for when I hire, people tell me I did the strategy for XYZ brand. And then you ask, okay, what was the strategy? And they have no answer. They basically refer to campaign calendars. You don't want to hire that type of profile. You want to hire the type of profile that would be able to tell you, we had this problem, and then we made this decision, and we prioritized in that way for X and Y and Z reasons. And if you do this, you will have a very strong team, which will make everything else that I walked you through today so much easier. So these are the observations that I've seen across all of the brands that went from 0 to over 100 million bootstrapped. And I'll summarize again. Pick a product that's easy to scale. It's more important than anything else. Test the offer before you focus on branding. Scale the winner, but never stop testing. Know your LTV to CAC ratio, and then obviously manage it, right? And then in terms of channels, don't chase the shiny thing. Master the core 3 before you focus on anything else. If you are a subscription business, focus on all 3 subscription levers, not just what's obvious, which is acquisition, and then ultimately hire to a standard that always raises the bar. None of what I said is unique or extraordinary or exotic, but all of it is 100% true. And I promise you, if you pay attention and if your objective is to scale and you implement some of what I said, you will thank me for putting out this video. Now, if you need help with growing LTV and you're overall making your business more scalable with stronger margins, more returning customers, then there's a link to book a call with me down below. If you are not ready yet, that's totally fine. Be sure to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.